Hello and welcome to Making Your Own Unity Game, Adding AI Part 2, Line of Sight. So in the past tutorial we developed this model and I'm going to continue on over here. So the first thing I want to see here is I want to add a script to Ethan. Ethan is, if you recall, is my NPC. So I'm adding the script here. Let's see how it goes. Okay, the goal of this project right now, or at least this part of the tutorial, is to essentially add a line of sight. So the NPC is going to work with the line of sight. Okay, so the file is created now, so it's called check my vision. Okay, so what do we want to add here? There are a number of variables that we're going to add here, and all of them are useful. So once it's a little bit long, but I'm going to give explanation for that. So the first thing we want to see is if we have a line of sight, how sensitive are we about RVN? So this we'll explain that when the code comes itself, but I'm going to add a variable, and before that I want to add a new type, which is an enum, and an enum is going to keep the sensitivity. Okay, so sensitivity, I think. Okay, let's call it enum sensitivity. Okay, I think I made a mistake, but okay, so high or low. Okay, so what do we do next? Let's add a variable to check the sensitivity with this model. Okay, so public enum sensitivity. Okay, okay, this is going to go with so for now let's set the default value to high. Okay, what next do we want to add? Let's see. So we want to say, are we able to see the target right now? So we need to have a variable for that. So let's create a boolean variable. I know I'm adding all these things as public, but we're just experimenting. Okay, so let's call this target inside, and initially we want to keep it at false. Right now the target is not inside. The next is field of vision. Okay, and so I'm adding this. So this is the angle at which we can look. Okay, so let's initialize it to a nice value. Okay, and what next? Okay, we want to, now we need a reference. We actually need references to everything. So we need a reference to our target. So let's keep that here. It's a transform, and we initialize it with null. Okay, so the next is a reference to eyes. So basically the eyes of the enemy, the NPC. We don't have anything here right now, but we'll add this later on. So let's call them my eyes. Initialize it to null. Okay, I'm going to make some mistakes here. I hope to correct them later, but let's just keep typing. Okay, so now we want to keep our own transform component as well. So yeah, public transform, and what do we call it? So NPC. Okay, yeah, it's empty for now. And what next? Let's add reference to a collider, because right now we don't have a collider, so we can use one later on. Let's use a sphere collider. Okay, what is a good name for it? Or we can just use the default one. Okay, what next? So we want to add once we know the location of the target, how about we keep a reference to the last location? Okay, so this should be a vector 3. Last known sighting. Okay, what else? Now we're going to look at the awake method, and this is going to get called as soon as the script get called. Let's start with some of the basics. The first thing is we need the transforms. So the NPC transform we can do by a get component, and we can, because we are attached to it, the script is attached to this, so we can just call a get component. That's it. Okay, which else we want? Okay, we need yeah, sphere collider, which we don't have right now, but we're going to add it. Let's do a get component and sphere collider. Okay. Okay. We also need the last known sighting, and how do we find this? So this is the NPC transform. When we started, let's do the position of the NPC itself for now. Now about the target. Yeah, okay. So if I look back at the core target, we need in this case not that simple. We have to find the object somehow. I think it should be by tag. Okay, with tag. Yep. Find object with tag, and then player, and yeah, but that doesn't work. Okay, it's not getting compiled. I have to edit it. Okay, we'll tag this player later, but yeah, so I can edit it. What's wrong? Oh yeah, I think I clicked game objects dot find object with tag. Yeah, this does not look right. Yeah, we also need the get. Okay, get. Why is this not showing? Okay, so now it's showing. I deleted get component transform, so I deleted the S because it was returning an array. We just wanted one object. The next method we want to write is yeah, I think it's probably I want to check the field of VN. So okay, let's start that. So is something in my field of VN? What's that something? The player. is the player in my field of VN, because we're going to take two of these functions, utility function, to figure it out. Let's start with the vector 3. This is the direction to target. So how do we do that? Target dot position minus yeah, okay. So we want to compare it with the position of the eyes. Okay, so this is the direction to target, difference between the two vectors. Okay, so next we want to get the angle between the forward and the looking, the VN or the view direction. Okay, how do we do that? So let's find angle equal to, so find the vector 3 dot, okay, angle, and we convert the angle from my eyes to forward and direction to target. Okay, so, and now let us check if this is within the field of view, because this is what we want to return. We want to return the boolean if it's in our field of view, and otherwise if angle less than equal to field of view, then return true. Yeah, because it's within our VN. Otherwise we can say false, so it's not in our field of VN. Okay, the next function, what do we want to write? Okay, we need a function to check line of sight. So that was field of VN, and now this is going to check to see using raycasting. So do we have a clear line of sight or not? Okay, so we want an output variable which is raycast hit. So let's call it hit. Now this is going to be a long statement, but anyways, standard. So physics dot raycast. Now to use one of those options. Okay, so from my eyes dot position, this is where we want to start the ray. And what next? Okay, so target dot position minus my eyes dot position. So this is the difference will be passed here as the second parameter. And what next? We want to also okay, let's use the normalized version just to ensure we don't run into problem. And we of course need the hit, which is, you know, the output variable here, and the radius will be the sphere collider dot radius. Okay, if this happens, then it means that I think this will return. We have to check one more thing. So if we get hit dot transform, because we could be hitting on a mountain or something else. So we have to check if whatever we hit, is it that the player or is it something else? Okay, so then we return true. If it's the tag compares with player, then we return to. And what is the other option? Return false. I think the paths are incomplete, so let's move it. Okay, let's move it outside. Okay. Yeah, this completes the method. So basically now we've got two methods, one for the line of sight and the other one for the the connection in the field of view. So now let's see if we have a function which actually changes the sight, whether we've seen or not. So what do we switch on? It's the sensitivity. Well, I have to correct that later on, but yeah. Okay, so based on whether it's small or low or high, so if it is sensitivity, okay, yeah, we'll check that. If it's high, then we can check an AND of two conditions. What were our two conditions? Let's see. Okay. So we say target insight is equal to, we have to check if it's in our field of vision, and we have to check if there's a clear line of sight. So the two variables are there from two functions, and we'll do a break. What if the sensitivity is low? Okay, so in case the sensitivity is low, we can change the above statement by using an OR instead of an AND. Let's see. So in my field of vision or clear line of sight. Okay, so now we've handled both those cases. And break, of course. And that's it for now. What next? Okay, now we go to the actual logic for collisions or triggers. So we're going to add on trigger stay here. So here let's call update site. So whenever it's going to stay, the trigger gets called, and so let's call update site, and we update the last known sighting. And when do we do that? If target is in sight, then the last known sighting would be the position of the target. Okay, and what else? When the trigger exits, want to function there as well. Okay, what do we do here? Now if the other dot compare tag is the player, then what do we do? And we simply return. and target insight is then compared to, and it's actually changed to false. Okay, so let's look at this now. So we look at our NPC and we add an empty object. So I want to make the eyes. Yeah, let's call them NPC eyes. And it would be nice if we can see them. Yeah, first we add them to Ethan. Yeah, we raise them a little bit, so yeah. Oh, this looks interesting. Okay, here it is, and let's see. Okay, this is a nice position for our eyes, so let's make it visible in the editor environment. So yeah, NPC eyes. Okay, so we can see them in our model. Okay, what else? Okay, so the next step is we see these different values and we have to add the eyes to the member variable over here. We just did that. Okay, and in case of the FPS controller, we want to, because it's the player, so let's add it to player tag is added. Okay, now we want to add a collider, because if you recall we were using that collider in our code, and now the idea is that the collider is also a trigger. So let's try to see what else needs to be done. Okay, if we run it, let's see. So Ethan is going to come, and here you go. You can see target insight is there. So we've done it finally.